What is up, Kryptonians? Today I'm going to be talking about the Rings of Power. That's right, Season 2 just debuted on this past Thursday. And I've had a couple of days to think about it, and I wanted to give my thoughts, kind of scatterbrained thoughts on the premiere, which was 3 episodes long. Disclaimers before we get started, because we always got to get that shit out of the way first. These are just my personal thoughts and takes on the events of the first 3 episodes of Season 2. Not going to be a complete play-by-play or a complete breakdown of everything that happened in these first 3 episodes. Might be a couple of things that I mention in the video that I do for next week's, which I hadn't decided yet before I turned the camera on if I was going to turn this into a weekly thing, but you know what? I'm kind of leaning towards yes. So if there's anything I missed or anything that you want to talk about, be sure to put that in the comment section below. Also, if there's going to be a lot of negativity or toxicity in your response or whatever, feel free to leave what you want. Just know that I'm probably not going to engage with you. There was one other disclaimer that I'm not remembering. Right. Yeah, so if you were watching this video, I'm going to assume that you watched Season 1 and that you saw the premiere and that you have thoughts on it just like I do. Keep in mind, I am a big Tolkien nerd, okay? Like, I've read the book, I've read the appendices, I've read the Silmarillion. I'm gonna try to stay away from spoilers for a lot of that stuff, especially the book stuff, because I know that some people watching the show and have no idea what happened in the lore, in the text, and I want to keep it that way just in case some surprises pop up. I might reference the movies more just because, like, you know, those movies came out like 20-some years ago, and you should have seen Lord of the Rings by now. All right, disclaimers are done. Let's talk about the premiere for Season 2, and holy shit, they hit the ground running. I'm gonna save most of my Sauron and Anatar thoughts for probably the end of the video, because there was a lot of really interesting, fascinating, and epic things that happened with his storyline, and I want to like save that for like the dessert of the meal. Let's get to the appetizers first. From a technical aspect, this show is once again firing on all cylinders. Whatever your thoughts were in Season 1, you can't deny that it was a gorgeous, beautifully produced show with excellent, amazing, god-tier cinematography and amazing music. Bear McCreary is back to do the music and the soundtrack for this season, and he is once again deep in his duffel bag. This music just perfectly fits. It perfectly fits Middle-earth. Bear McCreary just has a way of making all the music sound epic, all of it sounding urgent, all of it sounding really intense. All of the familiar themes are back in place here. Nothing is really topping the Numenor theme. Like, the Numenor theme is just one of my favorite pieces of music ever composed. I would say if there is a theme that stands out though, it's the Damrod one. When Damrod comes to the orc camp in Mordor and he's like, "Where's Sauron?" Theme that plays while he's walking through. I don't know. I thought it was kind of punk rock and it was kind of funky, and I thought it was really interesting. This might be one of the top 3 or top 2 most beautiful, gorgeous looking shows that I have ever seen, and I have seen a shit ton of shows. One of the things I love about the cinematography for the show is the way that they play with silhouettes. I like silhouette imagery in Lord of the Rings lore. The opening shot, like where you first see Círdan when he first shows up before Elrond gets there, like that's just one of the best shots that the show has ever made. Definitely reminds me of some great silhouette shots from the OG trilogy with Gandalf and the hobbits or other people walking. I just thought that was a cool thing. There's also a great shot from Season 1 in the beginning where Galadriel is kind of looking at a statue of her brother. There's a fire lit underneath him, and the colors for the scene are very dark and muted, and I think this kind of symbolized Galadriel and how close she still was to the darkness, the fire that burns in her to get Sauron and to kind of lose part of herself doing it. And I like the fact that in Season 2 we get another shot of her looking at the statue of her brother, but instead the scene is immersed in light now. It's a very light, colorful, warm scene, and it kind of symbolizes that maybe she's ready to kind of move beyond some of this darkness and start finding her path to the light. Speaking of light, let's talk about briefly the Elvish plot and Lindon. I like the fact that there wasn't a lot of setup. They kind of just dropped us in the middle of it where Galadriel is racing Elrond back to Lindon. I also like that we immediately got into the crux of why things were happening, and we immediately found out she's like, hey, yeah, so the person I brought to Eregion, he's actually not who I thought he was. It was Sauron the entire time. I love the little noise that Gil-galad makes. He makes the same type of noise that parents make whenever their kids like knock something over on accident. Every time a parent sees their kid fuck up in some way, they make the same type of noise. I really like the way that this season so far is introducing the conflict between Galadriel and Elrond, because in Season 1, they were the best of friends. There was an inherent warmth and trust and comfortability between them. And now this is the point where we introduce some conflict and the characters are in a more uncomfortable spot. Like, the characters are just at odds. Obviously, Elrond's trust in Galadriel has been shaken a bit. I like how it kind of mirrors and switches the dynamic from season 1, because one of the things that I had kind of an issue with in season 1 was Galadriel and how she was constantly talked to like she was some petulant child. Gil-galad in particular always seemed to have some kind of beef with her, but in this season, maybe due to circumstance, maybe because Gil-galad is being pragmatic, but it feels like Gil-galad is being more welcoming and more trusting of Galadriel. Like he's putting his faith in her to a certain degree. Not too much faith in her, as we see like he still entrusts Elrond to look after her and take command of her group as they go to Eregion to try to warn Celebrimbor. But I like the fact that he's speaking to her with more respect. I don't know, that's just a thing that popped out to me that I'm hoping continues to grow throughout the season. When Elrond is having his conversations with Círdan, the first one when he's trying to convince Círdan that he has to like destroy the rings. I thought it was funny that Círdan like sailed his boat all the way out there and almost dropped the rings, and then like, I don't know, something hit the boat. I don't know, for me it kind of felt like divine intervention. It felt like something outside of the realm of reality was kind of messing with him and letting him know, hey, actually you might want to keep those rings around. And I like the second conversation Elrond has with Círdan too, where Círdan is essentially giving him some version of judge the art, not the artist, and you have to open your eyes and guide these people. Don't give up on your friends. Don't give up on the people that you trust the most. Círdan is awesome. The actor playing him is awesome. I think his name's Ben Davis. I could be wrong about that. Either way, he oozes wisdom. He oozes cool. He's like the only elf that looks like he's lived longer than everybody else. Love that they touched on his desire to see Valinor. Like that was just a constant thing where he mentioned, oh, nothing's perfect except in Valinor. Shout out to Círdan. Shout out to Elrond. I'm very interested to see how this elvish plot moves going forward. Briefly gonna touch on the Numenor plot here. Yeah, so things are getting kind of crazy in Numenor. I do wish that we had seen more scenes of Miriel like mourning her father. I do think that the faithful, how they've been portrayed in the early goings, I feel like they've been a little bit too quick to jump on the bandwagon. I feel like there should have been more room for them to breathe. I also do like at the same time that Miriel showed a lot of strength when that woman came up there and like clocked her and she had to like grieve with her. I thought that was a great moment for her character. And of course the eagle showing up at Miriel's coronation, I don't know, I thought that was kind of funny. Eagle was clearly there for Miriel, but then the rest of the faithful are just kind of like, oh shit, look at the way that it looked at Pharazôn. It's here for Pharazôn. All hail Pharazôn. You can just tell the eagle's sitting there looking at them like, you dumbasses, I'm here for Miriel. Like seriously, are we doing this? Oh, okay, you're just gonna keep, you know what? I'm gone. My way. Handle this. These people are stupid. Also really appreciated that little scene of Elendil checking Kemen. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. He is definitely going to be an important ally to Elendil and Miriel going forward. Jumping to the Khazad-dûm plotline, I'm a little bit mixed on some things. What I'm not mixed on is the relationship and family dynamic between Disa and her husband Durin III and his father Durin IV. At the end, Durin had to go to his father and be like, hey man, I'm just like you. I am stubborn just like you. But he had to like swallow his pride and admit like, hey, I was wrong, man. I love that Disa is like the bridge between these two, and she's like constantly telling them how stupid they are, how idiotic they are. She's like the voice of reason. She's like the heart of the Dwarven subplot. I love Disa and I love her relationship with these two, especially with Durin III. Can't wait to see more of that. The whole idea of like Mount Doom, the tremors from Mount Doom and that volcano erupting affecting Khazad-dûm and the sun mirrors feels a little bit weird for that to be the case. I know that time is a relative construct in this show and that not all events are happening concurrently or at the same time. I get that, and that makes sense to explain most of the other time discrepancies in the show. I don't know, it feels like there have been events that have happened since Mount Doom. This feels weird. Like, are the tremors getting there weeks later or something? Feels like an excuse to kind of put the king in a similar position that he had Durin in the first season. The first season when Elrond is dying and he goes to him and he's like, hey, can you guys help? The elves are fading. We're gonna have to leave. Durin IV is like, yeah, no, that's not our problem. If it's the elves' time, it's the elves' time. Well, now he's in a similar position as the king of the dwarves where he has to decide, like, is it the time for the dwarves to like die? Is it time for us to like just let it be? Or should I do whatever I can to save my people? How this is going to tie into the 7 dwarf lords with the 7 rings when they eventually get made, I think all of that is pretty intriguing. Absolutely the standout for the episodes for me was the prologue, the very beginning, like a 20-ish minute sequence that focuses on Sauron and how he came to be. Halbrand as we know him in the show. It makes total sense to me, to be honest. He's sitting there, he's talking shit to the orcs. We all know that Sauron has like a deep, like a hatred and a dislike of the orcs and only really uses them as slaves. And we know that the orcs and the people of Mordor, they don't like Sauron or Morgoth. They treated them with hatred, but they serve them out of fear. I love the fact that you can tell that it's been some time since Morgoth died, and you can tell that Sauron is just, he's not completely comfortable yet. He feels like one of those people that gets a promotion at a job. In that room, when you're trying to sell yourself to the people who hate you because you took that job, it feels like he's sitting there and he's trying to sell them on a good PowerPoint presentation and it's going poorly. I feel like we've all kind of been in that position in our lives. So the build up, the betrayal of Adar, where we can't really tell if Adar pre-planned this or if this was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. The way that all the orcs attack him, the way that he still shows off how powerful he is, by he sends a lot of orcs flying and he like kills a few of them before they all overwhelm him and stab him. And then we see like the passage of time, we see like thousands of years go by, or at least 8,000 years go by, and he's just goo. In fact, we could call him Guron for the point of this video. So Guron, like just kind of drifting around and being empty black goo and then killing insects and animals to kind of like rebuild himself. I thought that entire sequence was really fun, really fascinating. Him killing that woman, becoming a man, taking on his fair form again. Having it lead directly into Galadriel in season 1 when she approaches the raft, and now we see kind of the gears in his mind working. Now we can see the manipulation from day one. Because at the end of the day, the old man that tried to give him that advice, the guy that he took the heraldry off of, he was kind of right in a way. Like, being good is something that you have to practice and do every day until it becomes who you are. That's the biggest issue for Sauron and his whole repentance stage, is that who he is evil. He's just an evil person. But he has maybe moments where he tries or moments where he thinks he could be, does not have the fortitude or the discipline to do that shit every day. When it comes to Nori and Poppy and the Stranger and the Rune storyline, I'm sorry, it's still the weakest part of the show for me, for sure. Harfoot's and the Stranger storyline was the weakest part of season 1. It's a little bit better so far in season 2, but not so much better that it doesn't stand out as the weakest subplot. I didn't really care for how they brought Poppy back. Like, she just kind of shows up and it's kind of abrupt and it just happens. It makes me feel like the pointless Isildur fake out in season 1, where it's like, we know that Isildur is gonna be back. Why are you teasing his death or something like that? You could have just had an extra scene of him being alive or him being dragged off, because we see now he ended up in baby Shelob's lair. And it's the same thing with Nori and Poppy. Like, you could have just had Poppy go with Nori and the Stranger at the end of the season instead of her just popping up an episode later in season 2, 2 years later. The fact that we all know that the Stranger is Gandalf at this point, like everything about him is Gandalf coded. Even the stick that he's looking for, the staff that he's looking for, the way that they're calling it Gand, like, come on, man, he's clearly Gandalf. Now it just feels like you're hinting and teasing at it every episode and you're winking at me, and I just feel like cussing you out, because it feels like, just reveal it. It feels like you're wasting my time at this point. Can't let this video go by without shouting out my boy Beric. Beric the horse is Isildur's horse, who we get to see like from episode 7 in season 1. We get to see him running off into the distance to look for Isildur, and he finds Isildur, and this horse can throw down. Like, he has maybe the highest kill count on the show so far through 3 episodes. The fact that the first 10 minutes of episode 3 was focusing on Beric, his journey, and the fact that I was so invested just speaks to the level of care, the level of passion and attention to detail that these people have put into this show. Baby Shelob was cool. I think it's kind of a cool little thing that Isildur might be the one that wounded Shelob. That's kind of an interesting headcanon thing, that maybe Isildur, when he was fighting baby Shelob, is the one that, you know, hurt Shelob's eye. There's only a few mystery box situations that pop up during the show. Obviously, those elves that were on their way to Eregion to deliver the message from Gil-galad about the rings and about Sauron. Obviously, those elves are dead and we don't really see who did it, but I'm pretty sure those are the Barrow-wights. The way that it cut to a picture of Sauron sitting there in Eregion afterward makes me think that he has some kind of influence over the Barrow-wights. Also, I'm pretty sure Theo, who is going through some shit after his mother died, got kidnapped by an Ent, so we'll just have to see how that turns out. But holy shit, the moment of truth, the thing that I wanted to talk about more than anything else, let's go ahead and get into that. Anatar's reveal to Celebrimbor. Love the way everything about their relationship in this scene was set up. The way that Halbrand is just using subtle little tiny pieces of manipulation to make Celebrimbor feel for him, to make Celebrimbor invite him back in. He tells him that he is a servant sent from the Valar, the way that he tries to convince him he needs to make rings for men, and Celebrimbor hilariously is like, no, men can't be trusted. I know you were a man and I kind of like you, but yeah, nah, men are covetous. We can't do that. He manipulates and creates the perfect entrance for his Anatar form, his fair form. The imagery of him descending from like the heavens and having it look like Valinor, just, it's so beautiful. It's so well done. It's so amazing. I love everything about it. I love everything about Sauron's storyline in the early 3 episodes. The early prologue with him in Mordor, which I've already talked about. That scene absolutely reminded me of the prologue in Return of the King with Gollum and his transformation into Smeagol. Like, we get a similar thing here with Sauron that I think is really great. The deception that he uses for everybody, the way that he's kind of manipulated Adar into being like, oh shit, no, I have to actually prepare for war because we have to kill Sauron. The way that he bows to his feet, but he's still like, actually, I pledge to serve the Lord of Mordor, which is me, but yeah, I'll just say the Lord of Mordor until his day and my dying day. I actually think there is more quality content and character and storyline development in these 3 episodes than there was in half of season 1. I'm very excited to see where they go from here. Crazy to think of it, but we're already almost halfway through the season. I'm looking forward to next week's episode, and I am going to do a review breaking that down. Those are my thoughts on the first 3 episodes for season 2 of Rings of Power. Tell me, have you seen it? What were some of the moments and scenes that stuck out the most to you? If I didn't mention them here, please list them in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.